What did your parents teach you that you had to unlearn? Story 1, that marriages had to be miserable. Wasn't until I started going to sleep over at a friend's house and I saw his parents actually laughing and having a good time together that I learned that marriage can actually be good. Story 2, that in the real world, people don't have extreme and violent fights over minimal things and then act like nothing happened once it's over. Also, throwing tantrums are not the appropriate way to handle problems. Edit while this blew up. If anyone wants advice or someone talked about crazy family dysfunction, please PM. I know the holidays are coming up and things tend to get crazy this time of year. Before taking that bait from your crazy aunt, message me and we'll talk about how crazy she is and avoid the drama. You got this. Also, to the people trying to make this political, just stop. Story 3, my parents paid bills based on the cutoff date rather than the due date. They also acted like a good credit score was not a big deal. They drove theirs into the ground and then started putting things in my name. Took years, but now I pay my bills before spending anything on unnecessary things and have paid off all the delinquent bills they left on my credit. I am now teaching my 6-year-old to manage her own money by not spending all she has, but saving a bit too. The other day, she had 10 from saving up her allowances for a while, and when she went shopping, she spent only 6 because she said she wanted to save the rest. I near cried. Story 4, to finish my plate, go back for seconds. Learning to quit before I'm full stuffed has done predictably wonderful things to my waistline. When I'm back at their home for a meal, Mom always pushes me to go back for more. Story 5, my parents brought me up to believe that bullies were all people of low intelligence who would never really get far in life. This led me to believe that if I just bided my time, I would never have to deal with them again, and I didn't really develop much defensive behavior. They could not have been more wrong. Story 6, your grades are the only thing that matters. For my whole life, I was taught this. And for the most part, until the end of high school, I was able to get good grades effortlessly. I did quite well on standardized tests and got away with blowing off a lot of homework for school. My parents weren't happy with this because if you put in more effort, you could get straight, as my dad called my 33 ACT score pathetic, so it was pretty much ingrained in my brain that I wasn't good enough. A bunch of my cousins were great students that ended up going to prestigious colleges, Ivy League, and such, so I was always compared to them and treated like a failure. Once I myself out of college, I couldn't handle it and ended up failing out. After that happened, I was dangerously close to being suicidal for a while. If I have terrible grades, then I might as well be nothing right. I ended up getting a job where I've been moving up pretty fast. Every time I talk to my parents, they keep telling me that I won't amount to anything without a degree, but I make about as much right now as my friends who recently graduated. I know they aren't 100 wrong, but they definitely aren't 100 right. Edit another little tidbit. I once and only once truly opened up to my dad about my emotions. My twin brother got into a relationship before I did, and it made me feel inadequate or inferior. He told me that the best way to attract a woman is to just focus on studying and keep up my grades. Like, what the is that? Story 7, knuckle cracking does not in fact cause arthritis or have any detrimental health effects at all. Despite extensive medical documentation confirming this, my mother still refuses to believe it and gives anyone that does it around her an earful. Story 8, turns out that there are people who don't wonder what is wrong with me for doing my own thing as long as I'm not rude to them. It's perfectly fine to go watch a movie without my sister. I'm still waiting for that moment when owning Pokemon Black will ruin my future. Yeah, I can wear my short-sleeve House Stark of Winterfell t-shirts. I can even wear them in the winter as long as I have something else over them to keep warm. If you have a fever, it is perfectly fine to wait a few days until you feel better before cleaning your whole living space. Also, if you're coughing every few steps, not wanting to spend an hour walking to a shop for stuff you don't need and back does not mean you're lazy. No, chicken is not supposed to be burned outside and raw inside. Salt is not the only thing to put on food. Dad can cook, he doesn't burn the chicken. When I started taking cooking classes and we got creative in the kitchen, it turned out that he is good at it. No one is entitled to your time. If someone wants to hang out and you don't want, you are allowed to have other plans. Those plans can include pizza and a movie. You can have a previous engagement with the couch. Story 9, to be a bystander. For lack of a better term, my parents are very against me standing up for others, and even myself in some cases, and I had to learn that standing up for other people is the right thing to do. Also, how to pronounce cucumbers. Edit for those of you wondering, they pronounced it cucumbers. Story 10, that you have to adore your parents because they birthed you and raised you, regardless of whether they actually did anything to earn your admiration or trust. Story 11, my mom told me, you couldn't wear tampons until you've had a baby. Tampons were a revelation for me when I learned all the cool girls at school used them. Story 12, my mom is a very shy, non-social, passive person who has always had terrible self-esteem. She prides herself on not having needs and being the person who is okay with anything no matter what, of course. None of this is actually true. She merely doesn't directly ask for her needs. You find out what her needs were over a long period of passive-aggressive behavior. When I was growing up, she wanted to instill in me the idea that I would always let others' needs go ahead of my own, and that I shouldn't stand out ever, always fading into the background so I don't get in the important people's way. She'd often say, off the cuff, you wouldn't want anyone noticing you. You wouldn't want to get in someone else's way. Murder Kitty doesn't need anything, or you don't want to be a bother. She believed she was instilling wisdom by telling me that all clothes I wear as a woman should be neutral colors, too big, and nothing that would make anybody notice me. Nothing could be exposed above the elbows or knees or below the clavicle, or I would get nasty comment from her. Looking back as an adult, I recognized that she was probably trying to protect me, but it really me up well into my 20s. I didn't wear a single article of clothing that was flattering, fun, or fashionable until I was 23. Besides the clothes thing, this resulted in having terrible self-esteem throughout my teen years and early 20s, especially about my body, dating, allowing myself to spend money on frivolous things once in a while, and most importantly, learning to take up space in the world. It's a good thing to directly state your needs, to say, I don't want that, to stop caring what others think about you and how and the way you supposedly are, and to put yourself first most of the time. I now realize that the people who are passively putting others first are very mentally and sometimes physically unhealthy people who are, ironically, creating a bigger burden on people by not caring for themselves. Story 13, that you always have to clean your plate at a meal. And just because someone asks you, are you sure that's enough food, that doesn't mean you should get more food. I'm still unlearning these things at it for clarity. Story 14, Dad taught me how to order at restaurants. I get my date's order and give the waiter both. If there's a question like, does my date want salad or soup? The waiter is supposed to ask me, and I ask her, and then she tells me, and I tell the waiter, I was taught this was the way it's done, like not putting your elbows on the table. Surprisingly, I did okay for a long time, but obviously this style of ordering came from a time where women were closer to property. So has her own interactions with the waitstaff. I'm no longer in the go-between. Edit, if one person doing the ordering is what works for you specifically, I encourage you to do you. I was generalizing, but some people are totally cool with not talking to the waitstaff, and that's totally cool with me. Cool. Story 15, being passive-aggressive. My mom is the worst at that, and I used to follow in her steps until a friend told me I was doing it. Now, I'm trying to retrain my mom. It does not work. I go to visit my parents, and let's say my mom wants me to help her out doing something. If she doesn't ask clearly, I want help, because if I do, she will be like, no, don't worry, I can do it. But if I don't, she will be heavily citing, walking all around the place like she is busy and has so much work to do, looking at me meanly. I will be like, do you need help? She would just answer, no, I am fine. Well, if you're fine, that's fine for me too. I hate when she does that. How hard is it just to ask? She wants my sisters, my dad, and me just to guess what she wants, and we're so used to it that we just know, but not acting on it anymore. I see my sisters being pissed off at me, but not saying anything there as much passive-aggressive as my mom. Of course, I'll have a mail later, or when we're talking on the phone a few days later, she will hint that she's angry at me. But it's over. I have decided that if they want anything, they can ask if I need anything. That's what I do now. It's so much easier as well. I never feel angry at people for stupid things anymore. Of course, people aren't mind readers at it, because some answers I've got really start annoying me. One, no, I'm not myself being passive-aggressive. I tell her quite often that she could just ask to. I do the dishes and clean the table after eating. Of course, I do that. And if there's a dinner, I will help her prepare, of course. But I haven't lived in that house for nearly 15 years now. So when I come to visit, it's not always obvious that I should do some specific chores unless my mother explains to me what she wants. If she says in October that Shell needs to buy a new dress to wear for Christmas, I don't straight away assume that she wants me to drive her 50 kilometers to do some shopping, because my parents live in the middle of nowhere. Or like I explained in one of my replies, it's not, because there are 5 kilos of carrots in the garage that I should assume that she wants me to help her clean them, then cut them off to store in the freezer right after I've traveled 2 hours to visit her. No, if I visit, I don't tend to assume it is to do chores. And I'm certainly not going to willingly guess it if she's not going to ask properly. Story 16, to empty my plate. I hate that. I do not need to eat every last bite in front of me. I know there's starving kids in Africa, but fuck it. What are you going to do? Mail them the leftovers? I will never teach my kids this. Story 17. Where do I even begin? My father taught me some pretty shitty and close-minded ideas regarding race, poverty, class, sexuality, etc. My mother, on the other hand, tried to make me afraid of the world, and I only trust her. Seriously, anything my mother didn't understand was somehow evil or wrong. She tried to raise me to think that just about everything would kill me or send me to prison where I would contract AIDS and die. My father still has his shitty ideas, beliefs, but he's mellowed out in his old age too. He's still a little bit racist, but not like Kikikino Nazi-style racism. He just has some misconstrued ideas about the goals of the black community. He's quit being homophobic since my brother came out. He'll never admit he supports gay rights, but he's accepting of it these days. He still believes that poverty is a choice and that people choose that lifestyle because it's an easier alternative to work. There was a lot of damage I had to undo, that I don't need to obsessively conserve everything. We weren't poor when I was growing up, but we had a pretty tight budget and not a lot of extra money for anything. My dad would pour water into the chocolate syrup to make it last longer. Same with soap. I always felt bad about finishing something like a package of crackers or a jar of peanut butter. This has persisted into my life now. My parents collectively make a lot more money. Plus, I have my own part-time job. I still find myself not using enough shampoo and shower because I don't want to use it up too quickly. Or when I get my monthly Sephora Play box, those samples last forever. Because I feel bad finishing them, even though that's literally what they're for. I have a really hard time throwing anything away that I can think of any kind of use for, even if I know I'm not going to use it. It's a struggle. Story 18, my mother taught me how to be a lying, manipulative, narcissistic. I'm only just now realizing this, and it only manifests with romantic partners. I'm working on unlearning this now. Story 19, not to trust men. My mom held a very low opinion of my dad, and a low opinion of men in general as well. I was raised to believe they are essentially emotionless aggression robots whose sole desire is to take advantage of women. It didn't help much that a man actually tried to kidnap me as a young child. I started noticing something wasn't right at about 1,314 years old and had some guy friends. I learned better intellectually very quickly, but the underlying emotions of fear and distrust took a while to go away. You have to get close with men before they'll show you emotions generally. There are exceptions, so I didn't get to really see that until I was close with some. I truly got it maybe by about 21. I feel I'm misrepresenting my mom here. So if I want to clarify, she is not a feminist hippie. Farthest from it. She just grew up in a traditional Mennonite town where women were seen as property. She is learning better these days. Story 20, communicating my feelings and how to properly express them. My family has some horrible communication skills, and it's not something I realized until my husband pointed it out to me when we first started dating. We had a tendency to explode, then completely shut down and not speak to each other if we ever got into an argument. Sometimes we would say the meanest possible thing just to hurt the other person. Occasionally, the arguments would turn violent, but that was usually between my sister and my parents never turned violent. Admitting that we were wrong about something was also difficult for us. Also, mind reading. If something was upsetting us, we would never express it and just left it to the other person to guess what was wrong. My husband thought it was crazy how we communicated with each other, and again, I didn't realize it until he pointed it out. It took years, and I honestly still struggle with it, but have a much easier time analyzing a situation and expressing my feelings in a calm manner. Story 21, growing up, people in my family talked up my dad as a good driver, and I believe them. My grandfather on my mother's side was his biggest advocate, and my dad always vouched for his driving as well. So I internalized that, and that became my idea of a good driver. A few years ago, my grandfather and dad drove a family friend around, and that was when I learned that they're both overly aggressive, impatient, and risk-taking drivers. Now that it's been pointed out to me, I always notice all the tailgating, lack of signaling, and questionable lane changing. Story 22, that being a Mormon was the only way to get to special heaven, where I could become a god and make planets. Took me a while to figure out that it was all bullshit. Edit for some fun reading if you haven't yet. Go check out this link. It breaks down all the contradictions and doctrine issue, basically demonstrating what a load the entire religion is. Story 23, they taught me that it's okay to be friends with black-brown people, but it's not okay to date them. The Bible says so. Them reminding me of that when I started 7th grade made me question my belief in a deity and stop respecting their moral guidance. I'm still unlearning years later. I get mildly uncomfortable around black people I've never met before, and I hate myself for it. Story 24, my father wasn't a very good man, but he tried to be a good father. He taught us that nothing is more important than family, and that you should give your life for your family if needed. He taught us that loyalty was more important than feeling loved or valued. There's good threads of intention in those lessons, but it really upped my family dynamic for a long time. He taught us that if your pain is bad, you shouldn't confront it, but you should drink and suppress it until it comes out in bursts of violence. This one was hard for me to unlearn, and I'm still working on it. It's even harder for my brother. Story 25, my mom always told me to be nice and talkative to everyone. This totally backfired, and I ended up being over by a lot of friends I had as a kid. But luckily, this helped me learn who my real friends were. I still treat everyone with respect, But my previous experiences have led me to become much more reserved and cautious about who I make friends with. It's also led me to become extremely introverted. Story 26, that I am nothing more than an annoyance and inconvenience, and that I can trust no one, and that no one will ever love me. Not really, not selflessly. I still have serious self-esteem issues about it, and a lot of other stuff that happened, but I have my own family now that actually does love me and care for me. Without ulterior motives involved, I can trust people, and a whole host of obsessive behaviors about food and weight gain, and what a healthy portion size is, and I have a very, very hard time with quiet environments. Story 27, I've had to unlearn and relearn many things. 1. There's more to life than just lots of money and success. 2. Getting good grades are good, but there's more than just being a good student. 3. It's okay to have your own opinions. 4. Not every person who is older than you is always right. 5. It is perfectly fine if somebody else has a different orientation or lifestyle than you, as long as they're living the life they want and they're happy in life. That's all that matters. 6. It's not okay to be racist, no matter what you've been taught. You can't judge a book by its cover. 7. What you do in your life is your decision. You don't always have to be so concerned about what everyone else will think of you. Story 28, my mother led me to believe we were poor growing up, always complaining about bills, that we might not be able to afford electricity, we had to eat plain rice, etc. I will never tell my kids if we're hard on money. I've had to break the habit of being a penny pincher and trying to save all the money I can. Also, my dad used to travel a lot. I asked him when I was about 20 or so, and he couldn't understand why my mom ever said that. We've apparently never really been broke. Story 29, how to be in a horrible relationship. As in father who didn't want to be there, mother who put up with it for years. Can't tell you how many years I wasted recreating that nonsense until one day I said, my God, this is a relationship my parents had. Still wrestle with it, to be honest, but at least now I'm aware. Story 30, that cleaning isn't a chore. Anytime we got in trouble, we were told to go clean something in the house. Or if we did something really bad, it was yard work. So naturally we children all hated cleaning. It's taken me years to realize that having a clean house makes me feel so much better than a dirty house. Still working on the yard work though. Story 31, getting in trouble for having mediocre bad grades, or for getting in any sort of trouble at school if a kid picked on me. And I tried to stand up, get a no to my agenda, and my mom just screams at me. That made me forge signatures, hide bad grades, lie about my marks, shut down about what actually went down in school because I was just scared of my parents just freaking out at me. I remember I got a C on an English assignment in grade 5, and my mom was too upset to talk to me, so she sat at the kitchen table with me, and we wrote notes back and forth while she was on the phone with my dad saying how mad she was. How about she asked why I got a bad grade, or if I was having trouble with material, or if there was any way I could improve for next time. Story 32, if you're going to do something, be the best there is at that thing, or it's not worth doing. Play in the band, be first chair, join a team, win the game, be the captain, score a goal, and is practically a B. And a B is might as well be failing. It's lead to a life of success, respect, stress, fear of failure, inadequacy, and depression. There isn't much I can do purely because I enjoy it. And even those things leave me feeling guilty and shameful that I wasn't doing something more important. So I haven't quite unlearned it yet, but I'm working on it. Story 33, credit cards should only be used in emergencies and nothing else. I got my first credit card when I turned 16. Parents had me get one once I was driving in case I broke down somewhere. This was their advice. I understand why they told me this. I never got into credit card debt throughout college because I used a debit card for everything and I couldn't spend what I didn't have. But it took a lot of learning to realize the benefits of credit cards and take advantage of it. I don't think the advice I got was bad for me at the time, but I definitely had to relearn proper CC use on my own. Story 34, people that aren't white, Christian, and conservative don't deserve the same rights and are less than you. It has really been truly liberating breaking away from that super outdated way of life. I have learned to really love and appreciate people from all walks of life. Story 35, as a kid, I could not go around shirtless. In male, now I live at home still as an adult and watch my mom, 70 years old, walk around in boxers with a massively hairy back. But my 8-year-old body, right, what a turn off. Story 36, it took a lot of soul searching on my part to realize that getting a degree from a prestigious university and getting a ridiculously high-paying job is not the only path to happiness, and that I'm allowed to make happiness my #1 priority. I was raised to believe that I would be a complete failure if I didn't go to university right after high school and make as much money as possible. Taking a gap year was not an option. Going to trade school was not an option. Money came before happiness because money would lead to happiness. I ended up dropping out. My family disowned me. I beat myself up, Thinking I'd never amount to anything, I fought through the worst depression I'd ever experienced and worked many short-lived jobs over the course of 5 years, until by pure coincidence I stumbled upon my true calling in life. I took what was supposed to be a temporary job at my local animal shelter. Within the first week I knew it was what I was meant to do. I've worked there for 2 years now. I come home covered in puke and blood every day. I cry for those animals almost every day. I only make 8 an hour, but I would do my job for free, and I absolutely love every second of it. I might struggle financially at times, but am happy, and that's all that matters. Story 37, that putting off paying your student loans won't affect your credit. For school is completely unrelated to credit. 19-year-old me unlearned this the hard way. Now, finally, after about 4 years, my credit score has started to improve. Thankfully, I got married at 19 to someone who knows how to be financially responsible. My husband has taught me more about credit management in the last 4 years than my parents have my entire life. That is the work of the devil. Oh, and that there are people in the world who do want me around, and to whom I am not an inconvenience. That's good to know. Story 38, I had to unlearn only liking boring foods. My parents both completely lacked the ability to actually cook and could do little more than heat things up. While growing up and not eating out or getting carry out, we would regularly eat things like well-done steaks, pasta with ragu, meatloaf, chops, cheeseburgers with American cheese, macaroni and cheese, hot dogs, and butter noodles, all very, very, very simple things heated up with the least effort and least taste possible. But when you're a kid, that's all you're used to. I thought a lot of foods like sushi were weird and I refused to try them. When I finally graduated and got a well-paying job, I started to explore other foods. I quickly realized that a lot of those weird foods are absolutely delicious. I enjoyed pretty much everything I tried, and have since left the ragu world as nothing but a distant and not very fond memory. When visiting my parents recently, they cooked a dinner of spaghetti with ragu, and it was absolutely disgusting. I ate a small amount to be polite, and then said I wasn't very hungry. Story 39, I still have to unlearn the following things. Putting yourself first is normal. I never learned to listen to my needs or interests, and it's hurting my ability to do anything. That perfection is the expected standard. I never received compliments for anything I did or was in my life, only criticism, often unwarranted or unfair. Only when I did nothing wrong. I heard nothing. Letting out emotions is bad. One of the punishable offenses in the household was to be too emotional, which also means you're getting a bit louder due to cheers or frustration. That contributed to me swallowing every single emotion and hold it in for about 20 years now. And it made me a mess. I can't control it anymore. It's either 0 or 11, and it makes socializing impossible. The therapists and psychologists I talked to told me that chances are I will never recover because I was never able to experience a normal and healthy state. So I can't find a medium on my own, and because I don't have any contacts left anymore, no one can help me either. Don't fight back and just pick up the pieces later. This policy is right now ruining me financially, but everything runs over my mom's name, so I can't sew anything about it. Bureaucracy at its finest, basically anything that my father was supposed to teach me. He left my mom when I was 6, and the 2 following boyfriends of hers abused me regularly while my mom turned a blind eye on it all. I lost the ability to trust anyone or to feel safe anywhere, not even at home. There are probably a few other things, but those are the major points that I need to change, but probably never be able to. Story 40, saying no or voicing my dislike about something to my parents is not disrespectful or talking back. When I was little, every time I voiced to my parents about how I disliked doing something, I was scolded for it and was told that I was talking back. This further discouraged me to talk about my feelings in general, unless it was something positive that they would want to hear or something that I wouldn't receive flack about. I ended up being passive-aggressive instead of opening up about how I feel. It took getting depression to realize that it was unhealthy to keep my feelings to myself, and it's not burdening or disrespectful to talk about how I feel. Story 41, my parents would spend and spend and spend and would lavish themselves with gifts without thinking of the long-term consequences. If I tried to save money, I was considered selfish. Guess what? At the end of every month, my dad would be broke because of all that spending on expensive things, and we would hardly be able to afford the bread. LOL, I used to be like this and would blow through money without second thought, which didn't really work out for me in the long run. Now that I'm a bit older, I save quite a bit of money in case of emergencies. I just choose to not disclose the amount of money I had collected because I know it would be stolen by my dad for groceries. Yeah, right, TLDR, learn self-control with money. Story 42, side note. Am female, I had to learn how to treat people like human beings, and also that I was allowed to be angry. These seemed kind of conflicting, but I used to pull friends' hair and be super rough with them without thought, but was also quiet and shy and, for a period, terrified of human contact. My aggressive dad is 60 and beginning to unlearn some of these traits. He still struggles to keep calm, but he has noticeably just tried lately. I think my sister living away for uni has helped him realize how bad of an effect he has on us. I'm still kind of conflicted about forgiving him, because he tends to get bored of trying to be a better person pretty fast, but who knows, it might be different this time. Story 43, that it is actually not easy to just graduate and find a rich man to take care of me. I wish I was kidding. That's what she pushed me into. She didn't want to help me apply to college, didn't care if I had plans or goals. She said I could find someone to take care of me. Funny thing is I haven't gone to college, but I've worked since high school, and SHE helps take care of me. I don't feel that bad about it. Story 44, you're not hungry, you're just bored. You're not hungry, you're just thirsty. Drink water. I didn't realize how much it affected me until I realized I never felt hungry. I completely lost the ability to trust my body to tell me it needed food. Eventually, I realized it wasn't normal to go 3 or 4 days without eating. Thanks, Mom. Story 45, arguments are about manipulation and winning. You have to guilt trip the other person and make yourself out to be the victim. Present all feelings as if they're factual statements. Deflect any problems raised about you that you don't want to hear. Overall, very toxic. Story 46, that hitting a child is acceptable. Took me until my daughter was 2 to realize that no, it really is not for any reason okay. ETA, dummy wrote acceptable originally. ETA, to me, I can't write good. Story 47, that your body is secret and private and shameful. Me and my brother Washachar dressed ourselves from a very, very young age, and as someone who began puberty very early, I was told to cover up basically head to toe from the age of about 10. I wasn't allowed shorts or skirts or dresses because my family thought that my wearing clothes that were cool and showed some skin made me promiscuous. Funny thing is that in pretty much every other way, my family are pretty liberal and totally non-religious. I'm a pretty big girl now, and even at 22 years of age, I can't go into my mother's house in a dress or a low-cut top without her saying no one wants to see that. It's weird and has had some pretty annoying effects on my relationship over the years. I recently found out that many people had a naked phase as kids, or their mother would walk around the house in a towel and couldn't believe it. Story 48, creationism. I hit this holy shit don't understand basic evolution in sciences wall when I was 21. I did some binge reading and feel caught up now. But it's a pretty crappy feeling knowing that 6th graders probably understand more about how the earth came to be than I did. Story 49, don't speak unless spoken to, and don't speak when adults are speaking. At what point do you consider yourself an adult? When I had already started college, I still wasn't considering myself an adult, so it was difficult to network with older professionals. Don't speak unless you know him, still try to unlearn this. No, I'm not shy and have issues speaking in front of the class, but I'm not going to raise my hand and participate by guessing what the answer is if I'm not sure I know the answer to the question. Someone is always watching what you're doing. No, nobody gives a what you're doing. This has given me so much anxiety, thinking people are always staring at me, waiting for me to mess up. Sticks and stones break your bones, but words can never hurt you. Bullshit. Words hurt you and can hurt others. In case you can't tell, I was a very literal kid. Story 50, black people are another species. My mom literally does not include the black wise man in her nativity scene because a black wise man is an oxymoron, even though the real wise men were likely black. SMH mom. Story 51, that having needs and working towards having them met is a bad thing. To them, the collective good comes first. It sounds good on paper, but most of the time collective good just happened to be whatever was best for them, and not for me at the time. Suddenly you start doing your thing, developing boundaries and saying no, and you're stubborn. That always playing the victim and having terrible amounts of self-pity is good. This is one was the hardest to break. It takes a lot of effort to stop always looking for something to blame and start taking responsibility for decisions. My mom is always begging for people's pity, and it makes me cringe every time. Story 52, mother grew up in Virginia on the Tennessee border. I lived in Northern Virginia until I was 12, and then moved to South Jersey, had to unlearn the pronunciation of many words, especially words that don't have an or like wash. Story 53, my mom would compare me to this that was supposed to be my best friend. I'll get to school on time, gets good grades. Meanwhile, was a total to me. She was controlling and manipulative. I had this little plastic radio I would listen to help me fall asleep. Was angry that I dared to use it while she's sleeping over. So she broke it. Even though I had ear pods, my parents told me I shouldn't have been using it. No matter what I did, I was never right or good enough. I still have troubles getting over it. Finish everything on your plate and still try to unlearn that one. It isn't a problem when I eat at home, but if I go to a restaurant, the portions are enormous, and I generally end up sick because I ate the whole thing.